All right, guys. Well, welcome. Let's see if we get some people on here in a second. I'll give it a few to get started. But yeah, we're gonna go over the New England Jets game here, and I'm going to take you through my process for how I do kind of game flow specific projections. So what I typically do, I did an article last week on the basically the process I use for King of the Beach time, baby. The process I use for coming up with specific game scenarios that I think might be likely to occur, and then using those to actually come up with my projections for what each player should do. So today I was going to take you guys through my process for doing that. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully there's not too much crap here for you guys to see, but let's see here. How can I do this with more visibility? Yep, that's a bit better. Actually, you don't need to see my face. We'll just go to the full screen. Okay, so let's get this up here. And this is my kind of tool I put together. This basically, hold on, guys. I'm going to have to pause for a second. I'm getting interrupted here. Sorry, not to interrupt. Okay. Just give me 1 second, guys. All right. So this is what we're looking at here. What I've got is a this is basically the comes from the research station. I get all these information from research station, and what I've done is I pulled this into my own little spreadsheet here in order to show you guys what I kind of do on a week-to-week basis. And so this is where I'll actually come in order to put in my specific projections. And what I'm really doing is making modifications from the existing stats that we have in research station on a, like, for instance, Tom Brady passing attempts, completions, yardage, touchdowns expected, and so forth. And so these are kind of like so far season averages for these guys across the board. And I'll come in here and make adjustments to these based on the specific game flow, and then that will calculate out to the specific projection that player should get based off of those numbers. So let's go through this step by step, and I'll take you guys through the process. I'm going to keep up my Chrome thing here so I can see if there's, I don't have two screens, so unfortunately I won't know. I want to keep this off to the side so I can see if there's any comments in here. High 5-man tournament, who's got MVP, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Can you fade Brady in a 5-man? No, I don't think you would want to fade Brady in a 5-man. Okay. I'm going to just keep this up so I can see. I'm going to slide this over a little bit. Okay, cool. That'll work. All right. So what I'll do first is I come in here just to set my initial team-related statistics, and I get these from a variety of different places. Mainly, I'll get them from either Research Station if we have them, or I'll go look them up on NFL.com or some of the other stat sites that are out there for free for everybody to look at. And then I usually just do this kind of like little write-up here, and I'll publish this in the channel for everybody to see. But this basically just gives me some statistics that I'm looking at specifically for this game. So I'll look at, for instance, here at the top, New England averaging about 29 rushes per game and 39 passing attempts. That equates to roughly about a 57% passing to 43% rushing, as opposed to the Jets at about 20 rushes per game and 36 pass attempts. I will note that these statistics that I pulled in for the Jets, I tried to focus specifically on Sam Darnold related Jets numbers rather than just general Jet numbers, because I didn't want to muddy up some of the crappy Falk numbers in there for Sam Darnold, because there is a difference. So anyways, we'll look at this, and then I'll come up with some of these specific scenarios of what I think each team is going to do in this particular game, kind of weighing how the defense plays against that particular position, what I think percentage-wise passing to runs is. And I usually keep this pretty standard to what they are averaging, the pass to run for the season. And then passing success, I'll modify these numbers. Actually, I need to set one for the Jets, but I think this is going to be, he's actually done pretty well, like 69% to date, but New England defense has been limiting quarterbacks to 54% completion rate. So I'm going to find a kind of nice in-between spot for that, and I'm going to put them at 62. This is really just kind of up to you on like what you think they might, how much success they might have or not have in the the particular week based off the matchup. But so with these, I put these team snaps in here. These are also based off of like kind of like weekly or to season stats, how many snaps the team usually takes, how much they limit the opposing teams to, and so forth. And so New England actually does have a high snap rate, and they do limit opposing teams to a lower snap rate. And the Jets have a very low snap rate, as you can kind of see here, 20 rushes, 36 attempts, that's about 56. But they have a lower snap rate, so we might even maybe come up a little bit on this, but just because I think that it might play a little bit faster. But I'll come up with these numbers here, and you do have to kind of come up with how efficient you think the rushing is going to be for each team. So I typically just look across the board of here's the running backs here, how well have they done so far, and really none of them other than Burkhead have kind of averaged out more than 4 yards. So we probably want to reduce this, especially considering both teams play pretty good rush defense. So let's bring this down to, let's say, 3.9 rushing yards. And I'm going to do that probably for both. Let's see, White, Bell is at 3. We could even come down a little bit more on Bell. Let's go to 3.5 and 3.9 for New England. And then this is where it gets into a little bit more subjective. We don't have specific numbers here, and so this is really just going to be kind of how you feel like game flow is going to go. And this is what we talked about. Do we want to run like this particular scenario? Let's go ahead and run a scenario where we think it's going to be the New England onslaught kind of attack. New England's going to run up the score on the Jets, and they're going to stymie their offense. So that case, let's say we're going to predict that New England scores, I don't know, what do we want to do here? I would say 20, yeah, let's run with 4 touchdowns for the New England team, 2 field goals. That might be actually a little bit optimistic. Let's go a little bit more conservative. We'll say 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals. And I did look up the punt numbers that they've been doing. So New England giveaways, takeaways, punt numbers. So New England's punting about 5.2 times per game, and the Jets, I'm going to put in at 6. Depends on what numbers you look at. With Falk, they were up to like 7.2. So I'm going to run them at 6. So punts at 6 for them, and punts here are going to be at 5 for New England. And then we'll put in, we might actually put field goals up to 3 here for New England. We're not going to run them at 4 touchdowns. And then for the Jets, let's do, so New England has really severely limited opposing teams to touchdowns. So I don't know if we want to give them the benefit of a touchdown here. Let's go ahead and give them a single touchdown and maybe 2 to 3 field goals, I think might be probably about right, in 6. Let's go. We're going to say it's 2. We're going to say that the New England defense actually does pretty well here. Okay, so now what we have is this will calculate out based on the number of snaps, divvy up the percentages of passes, and so forth. And so now we can see, based off of this passing rate to rush rate and the success rate and how many snaps, how many touchdowns, field goals, punts, and so forth, how many drives we're looking at by that team, how many turnovers. This is really just the leftover of these that don't turn into a scoring drive. And then how many pass attempts, completions out of that, rushing attempts, and how many rushing yards we can expect from the team as a whole. And the same thing for New England, 34, 22, 26 rushing attempts, and rushing yards, 101. 2 turnovers from both teams. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Actually, let's compare our turnover numbers here to what we've got. So New England's averaging 2.7 takeaways per game, and Jets are averaging 1.6 giveaways. Both teams are about the same at 1.2, 1.4, so they're just over 1 giveaway per game. It looks more likely that if you look at this 2.7 to 1.4, that we can expect New England to take the ball away at least twice from the Jets. And I think we can expect probably 1, this would be about 1.5, but 1 takeaway probably is more accurate from the Jets. 1 to 2. So we might be a little bit high here on the turnovers for New England, but we'll let this run and just see how it plays out. Okay, let me see if we got any notes here or any comments. That's a big girls GPPs considered fame. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. So let's do this. So what I'll do is start with the quarterback here. Let's just plug in these numbers. So we've got Brady's going to be running at 34, 22, and then we got to do rushing attempts is going to be 26. So 34, 22. I'm just going to change Brady's numbers, 34, 22. Generally, I try to figure out the yardage based off of what they average, and I didn't calculate that in advance. So actually, let me undo that real quick. So he was running an average of 24 completions, almost 25 completions, and 290 yards per game. So that's roughly, let's see, a little bit, like maybe 12 yards a game or something like that. Let's do a quick calculation here. That divided by that is 11.7. Okay, so if we do 11.7 times 22, we get 257. Okay, so let's just run that. 22. And we'll run 270 yards? Yeah, let's go with 270. And then we're going to do the same for, okay, it looks like straight up 10 yards per completion here. And it's actually, if you look at the numbers, some of these stats, one of the things that I noticed, if you look here, Brady's actually ranked 10th best in air yards per completed pass. His ADOT is actually kind of low, actually. It's about, or middle of the pack, about 13th shortest. But the air yards for actual completed passes is actually a lot better. So that means he's just actually more accurate downfield than he's actually doing targeting-wise, which is weird. And then the Jets are actually second worst in air yards per completed pass, and Their A dot for Sam Darnold is pretty low at shortest, 6.7 yards per target. So it just tells us that he's going to be passing probably a lot underneath. We've talked about that, I think, in the past. I know that the Geek has put out, that kind of Gase mentality of the short Landry type underneath passes, which is one of the reasons we like Crowder a lot in this particular offense style. But anyways, let's go ahead and put in the Jets numbers here. So 30 pass attempts and 20 completions, so a bit lower, and we're going to put him in just over 200 yards passing. That's about 205. Okay, so touchdowns. Now this is where we have to determine how we think these touchdowns are going to come. So in this particular case, is the touchdowns from New England and from the Jets going to come from either passing or rushing? And this is really just like how you want to play this particular game scenario. I like to look a lot like where there's weaknesses on each defense, so that you know how the teams might target those teams. One of the things that I found, which is kind of interesting here, is that the Jets, while they're pretty good at actually limiting the amount of rushing yards, they are. Let's see here. I wrote it down here somewhere. Yeah, both teams are pretty good at limiting rushing yards. I think they're about ranked similarly. Actually, New England's third, and the Jets are 13th at limiting rushing yards. The Jets are actually second worst at preventing rushing touchdowns. That just tells me that they're giving it up at the goal line, and they're just not giving up a lot of yards. They're giving up touchdowns. New England is actually third best in preventing rushing touchdowns. New England's good at everything. Like they're ranked close to the top on almost every stat defensively. Now we have to consider the fact that New England's basically played all shit teams for the entire year. So their schedule is ridiculously easy, considering that they're the best offense in the league. So anyways, this tells me that we can probably expect maybe New England to score at least one or two touchdowns via rushing. If they get into the red zone, there's a pretty high likelihood that either Brady is going to rush it in, or like he did twice for the Buffalo again in the Buffalo game, or Sony Michel or James White or Brandon Bolden or somebody's going to get it. So you kind of have to make some decisions on who you think and why you think that might be the case. So let's go ahead and put it in that we think that this particular scenario, let's go ahead and put it in that we think that we're going to get one or two from Brady, and we'll get the other one in the rushing when we do the running backs. And from Sam Darnold, I think it's going to come via the pass, not via the run. They've actually, New England's been I think they're best in the NFL, or second best in the NFL at preventing passing touchdowns. Let me see. Both teams are top 6 in preventing passing touchdowns. Jets are 6th and New England's 1st. Yeah. So actually, maybe what we want to do is let's do this. Let's run it at 0 and 1, and we'll put it all in rushing. We're going to just say that they're going to come via the rush to see how this plays out. Okay, so Bell. So these are his averages so far this year. From what I've got in here, I don't know why my target numbers aren't coming in, but let's see if we've got those here. I don't have them. So we can kind of extrapolate it from the receptions, but all right. So Bell, they're gonna rush 18 times in this game, and probably all of those are coming from Bell. So I think we can go ahead and stick with this number. Let's go ahead and up to 3.5. These rushing projections will calculate based off of the attempts and rushing yards. And then the touchdowns, we're going to give it all to Bell because he's the only guy. There is Ty Montgomery. We're going to give him 1. Go ahead and leave that. And then he gets maybe 1 completion, 1 target. We'll go ahead and leave that as the default. And then I'm going to 0 these out, actually. And then targets for Bell. If he's catching 5 to 6 passes per game, he's probably being targeted about 7 times. I have that go down to the 5. And then James White catching 6. I think he's targeted roughly like 8 to 9 times per game. He's going to probably get a decent amount in this game just due to the fact that we have no Burkheads. So let's give him, let's give him 9 attempts and 6 receptions. We'll go ahead and leave the yards per reception, kind of what his average is. Sony Michel, he really just doesn't get targeted much. They've been doing a little bit more, so we'll give him 2. And completions, we'll give him 1. And then this is too high, probably. Let's go ahead. I just don't give the running backs a ton of yards per reception. And then Burkhead's out, so we're going to 0 this out. No, you don't get any attempts. No rushing yards per attempt. No touchdowns. And okay, Sony is so he's been averaging more lately. So and James White, let's see, 3 attempts. Okay, I'm okay with this. 3. And what's our rushing yards? I think 3.9. Let's say that's fine. And Sony Michel put in at 3.9 as well. And we'll give him 18 carries. See, 18, 19, 20, 21. How many are we doing for these guys? 26 attempts. 18, 21. So let's say maybe we'll give White 1 more carry and him. It's 23, and that leaves 3 left over for Brandon Bolden. Okay. Now we have to decide who's going to get the touchdowns. We got 2 to divvy up by rush. So what I do when I don't know, when there's this 3-man scenario, I try to just break it up by likelihood. And if we go back to what was the outcome, let's see, it was averaging half a touchdown per game and 0.4 touchdowns per game. And I don't think James White had any. Let's see. Oh, sorry, 0.2. No, that's Bell. Yeah, so none for White rushing wise. White gets his usually via the pass. So so what we can say is we think that one of these is coming by Sony. I'd say that Brandon Bolden has maybe a 50% chance at it, and James White has a 50% chance at it. Because they basically both get the same amount of low end carries, and really we might even want to drop this to 0.4 each and bump up Sony to 1.2, something like that. Okay, so I like this. Go ahead and up that a little bit. And then Rex Burkhead we got out. Ty Montgomery, yeah, not doing a whole lot there. Go ahead and give him a little bit more, or bring him to 6. I think the New England defense is a little bit better for defending the passes. to running backs. And then Brandon Bolden, he's got way too high of a depth, yards per pass. Okay, 8. We'll just drop everybody to that. 1 target. Let's give him 2 targets, 2 receptions, and delete that. Okay. So now we're under receivers. Okay. What do we got? Any questions here? Pretty cool. Thank you. Just sit back and observe. Is there an app? Wondering if we let be wise to play Sony and White. Yes, I like Sony and White together. Is this Sports Talk ASMR? Not sure what ASMR is, but this is DFS Army podcast for tonight's New England versus Jets showdown, doing my projections based off of scenarios. Okay. Yeah, good play for Bolden if Pat's ahead. I don't know if actually Bolden is really that game flow dependent. It seems like they use him in his sort of kind of particular role regardless of the game flow, although they haven't really been behind in games, so we don't really know what that looks like. But yeah, he does usually get a bit of work in both rushing and passing situations. They kind of work him in. He's sort of like a Rex Burkhead light. He doesn't get as much attention, but like he's definitely somebody we have to factor in, and he does tend to come in and vulture some of those touchdowns. So he's, I think, had a touchdown in every game in the last 3 games. So it's kind of frustrating if you're not playing him and he gets that touchdown and you got White or Sony or whatever. Okay. All right, Riley. Thanks. Julian Edelman. Okay. So, all right. So this is where we get into the total amount of passes to receptions combined. So if we know that Tom Brady's going to throw 34 passes attempts and complete 22 of them, and Sam Darnold's going to go 33 for 20 or 20 for 33, then we know essentially how many targets we need to distribute across all the wide receivers. And so if these numbers don't add up, then we've got something wrong in our particular scenario, and we need to make adjustments. So this is kind of where I'll usually use kind of these numbers as a guideline of like how much I think those particular players are going to get when we look at it across the board. So I use these little windows up here to tell me how close my calculations from receivers here are to what my projections are, which is basically what the quarterback is doing. Okay, so we can see that right now, calculated by the receivers, I've got 27 targets, 17 receptions, 177 passing yards. And on the Tom Brady side, we've got 33, 22, actually really close to what we want those to be. We need to adjust for the touchdowns here, and then we should have some numbers to work off of. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. We're going to go 9 for 6. We'll go ahead and stick with what he does normally. I like that. I'm going to just leave these touchdown numbers here for now. We'll come back and adjust those. Josh Gordon is out, so we're going to 0 him out and 0 out those. James Crowder, 8 for 5.6. We're going to round down here due to the better defense. Yards, okay, sure. We'll leave those. Robbie Anderson, 5 for 3. I think these are actually pretty good numbers here. Maybe he gets one more target, but I think percentage-wise they're going to be a little bit lower. Now we'll give him. Should we give him the benefit of the doubt? What do you guys think? 16 yards, that's far too many. Let's drop that to 14. Really, he needs to catch a deep pass for this number to occur. Yeah, I think the percentage rate is going to be low on him due to the fact that he runs deeper routes. So we'll keep it at 50% catch rate there. And then Demarius Thomas, he's actually been a little bit more involved lately, so these numbers are somewhat depressed based off of who his quarterback's been. We're going to up him to 6 and 4, I think. And average depth, I want to drop this a little bit. We'll go to 11, I think. Jacoby Myers, he's actually been a bit more involved recently with the fact that Gordon's out. So let's give him 5 targets and 3 receptions. And I'm going to drop his depth as well. I don't like going too deep on some of these guys, especially if they're not deep threat types players. Let's drop him to 13. Then Watson. So this is kind of the wild card. Like, I don't even know if they're going to throw it to him or not, but we'll go ahead and give him a couple targets. These are going to be short passes, probably. He's going to do probably a couple of those up the seam types of routes, so we might get 12 yards out of him. And Tomlinson, 0. He's not going to get anything. And let's see here. I'm going to get down here to some of these scrubs. Ryan Griffin is going to get some targets. He's been getting like 3 or so in a game. We'll just put him at a low. I'm going to put him at 4. I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit higher than normal just because I think that with the New England defense, they're going to force Darnold to throw it into the middle of the field. And I think that's going to set up for more tight end checkdowns. So let's do 4 for 3. And his yards, I don't know, but we're going to give him 8 per reception. And then kickers, Gunner, I'm not going to put him in. The only reason to put some numbers in here for Gunner would be is if Dorsett was inactive, which I think he's going to be active, so I'm not going to give Gunner anything. Vincent Smith, also not a guy that I'm going to give anything to. He comes in for a couple gadget plays a game, so he could get some points, but low floor kind of option here. So, and same thing with Josh Bellamy. These are like basically kickoff return and punt return dudes right here. So I think our numbers look pretty good. Let's take a look at where we're at. 32, 21, I guess pretty close. I'm okay with that. 194 yards, 29 and 20. So we might be a little low on the Tom Brady side. So let's go ahead and bump these up. Since Gordon's out, we didn't really distribute enough to the other guys. So I'm going to give it to Edelman. We're going to go up, one more up on Edelman. And we're going to go James White. It's probably the most likely candidate. Where's Dorsett? We don't have Dorsett in here. That's the problem. Let me drop that back down. What the heck? I got Ben Watson in there. Joe Vaughn. He's right here. Ben Watson. Boom. 2 for 2. Okay, so you know what? Let's just, I don't know why we don't have Dorsett in here. I'm going to just change it here. Dorsett. I'm going to use Gordon's spot basically for Dorsett because they're basically the same person. So what do we think? Dorsett's probably going to get similar kind of attention to Jacoby Myers. Let's do 5 for 3. And we'll give him 13 yards per catch as well. Maybe a little bit more. He's a bit more of a deep threat. 5 for 3. So now where are we at? 34, 23. I like it. 247, 270. We're maybe a little bit under on the yardage. Bump up here. Maybe okay. Getting pretty close. 250. Maybe give wait, 9. 57. Okay, we got to get up there. Jacoby Myers 14. 260. Okay, we're close enough, I think. Might be a little bit off on the yardage, but it's not significant enough. Now we just need to divvy up the touchdowns here. So Edelman. Okay, so for Sam Darnold, we're giving him 0. So that's easy. We're just gonna 0 out all of the wide receivers for the Jets, and we have 1 for Brady. So we need to spread that out. It's going to be well, the likely outcome here is it's going to be Edelman just due to the volume that we're projecting for him, but it really could be any of these guys. So we'll give a slight edge to Edelman and White here. And so I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to do 0.4 for White, 0.4 for Edelman, and we'll give Dorsett 0.1 and Myers 0.1. I think these are basically the guys, like the chances based off of percentage. We might bump these up to like 0.15 or 2 or something like that, but I think we're good with this. I think the highest likelihood here is Edelman and White for reception touchdowns. Okay. And Watson has 0.2. We're taking that off. I can see a scenario, like we know Brady loves Ben Watson. Dude's been around forever. And they had a good rapport back 10 years ago, I guess now is the last time he played for the Patriots. But like, we don't know what to expect here. He's coming in basically off the street. He's got signed, re-signed with the Patriots 3 to 4 days ago or something like that. So we'll see. I'm sure that they're going to actually involve him a little bit in the passing game, but I don't want to bank on it. All right, let's see what we got here. Question: is Griffin a good choice at his price? Yes. Gunner's still going to be involved. Pats will run more 4 wides. Yeah, we'll see. I doubt they're going to run 4 wides very much, but I kind of feel like this is going to be a more run-focused game. One thing I was talking with the Geek about a little bit here is that I did a bit of digging into teams that New England has faced in the last couple of years, mainly divisional rivals that they faced more than one time in a year, just to see kind of game flow wise how they might change up the game script from the first game to the second game. And it's pretty much been consistently a strategy, or whatever you want to call it, or an outcome really, of those games where the game script flipped from the first game to the second game. So you can think of that either as Bill Belichick decides, like, I showed him one thing the first game, I'm going to show him something different. We can beat him any which way we want. I don't know exactly what the mindset is there, but it does seem like the outcomes reflect that if they passed heavily and scored a lot of points passing wise in the first game, then in the second game, they've come back and smashed the football down their throat and run up the numbers from a fantasy perspective on the rushing side, and vice versa. If they came out rushing first, then it's a pass attack in the second game. I don't know if that's going to be the outcome here. What I do know is the first game they passed significantly more, or they scored at least more passing wise. So if we decide to apply that same logic here, we can expect more rushing volume and touchdowns and points to running backs in this particular game, if you want to buy into that particular scenario. So that's what we're going to run. I mean, basically what we have here, right? We've got Brady passing still, but scoring most of the points through the rush. Okay, we've got our projections now. So basically these numbers right here. Oh wait, I'm sorry, we forgot to do our defense and our kickers. Okay, so defense, these kind of you have to figure out, based off of what we think that the individual defenses are going to do. The biggest kind of question mark here in my mind is, what's the Pats going to do from a actual like scoring perspective? But I don't like to predict like pick sixes or defensive touchdowns because I think that they're highly volatile, and I just don't predict them as far as like projections go. So what I do look at is number of sacks, number of turnovers, and points against. So I think that the Pats here are going to hold the Jets under 20 points, and they are going to get, if we look at like number of sacks and stuff like that, I think they're going to get about 3 or 4 sacks in this game and get 2 or more turnovers. I'm going to go ahead and have one of those come from interceptions, one from fumbles, and then this is just an additional points for a number based off of like how much they hold teams to. And so you have to figure out what the scoring is for that. If it's under 20, I'm going to give an extra point here for holding them under 20. If you think that they're going to come in under 10 or whatever, then you give them 4 points. So and for the Jets, I'm going to give them, I'm actually going to give them similar numbers here, but we're going to go ahead and since they are going to score, actually what we have is the Jets are scoring 13 points in this game. So we actually could bump this number up. I can't remember. I think the break point is 13. So let's put that up to 4. And then, is it 4 or 3? I can't remember. I think it's, well, we'll put it in 4. I think it's either 4 or 3 points for 7 to 13 points. And then New England's going to score 30. So that's a big fat 0 for the Jets. Okay, and then kickers, we can just base this directly off of touchdown numbers and field goals. So for the Jets kicker, it's going to be 1 and 6, so 7 points for the kicker. I don't predict 40 or 50-yard ones as well, so I'm just going to put the number in here, 7. And then for the New England kicker, where is he? Ficken? Where's my kicker? I messed something up. I don't have him. Okay, well, he's not here, but I will add him. I will add him somewhere. But we're going to project him at 3 touchdowns, 3 field goals, 9, 10, 11, 12 points. So, so 12 points to, what's his name? New England kicker. Their fill-in guy for Gostkowski. So we got our projections. I'm going to go ahead and what I usually do is just copy these off and put them over on my little, let's see here, week 7 sheet. Oh, this was the Chicago thing that I had done during the podcast I did with Burns, actually, and I just replaced New England and Jets in here so I could see what their numbers are. And you can see, actually, well, like New England just limits everything, but Jets are actually most susceptible here, although they've been pretty good about limiting quarterback points against quarterbacks. The running backs and wide receiver numbers are a little bit better here, 26 to running backs and 38-ish to wide receiver. So, you know, they've been a decent defense. Anyways, let's go ahead and we'll just create a new tab here and drop in our projections. And then what I'll do is I'll just create my little, this times 1.5, so I know what my captain slot is. And then we're just going to do a little sort on column B, largest to smallest. And I'm going to go ahead and add in, what the heck's the cooker's name? Did somebody put it in the chat? Nugent, thank you. I knew it. I knew it. I just forgot. And we're giving him 12 big points. Wow, okay. Let's resort these. Look, if you're going to project a kicker at 12, he's going to be heavily in your pool. So I already know that he's going to show up, and he's probably going to actually, the domination station is going to actually put him into the captain spot a little bit as well, or just the smallest. Okay, so I don't like all this, so I'm going to just do a quick format here, guys. Too many decimal places. Okay, that's a little bit prettier. All right, so now what we do, or what I do, let's go to my, oops, don't want to do that, to bring up domination station. All right. This looks like the biggest trap game of the year. Could be, yeah, could be a trap game. I got Edelman as captain, Brady, Crowder, Griffin, Thomas, Thoughts. Don't hate it. I think that you have a little bit more Jets than I like, but Jets D as captain. Sure, go for it. Like, look, I mean, these showdowns can go, and we've seen them go crazy and go any which way. I don't hate the Jets defense here. I think that they've scored well in recent weeks, but they didn't do so good against Dallas, but they won the game. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I actually going to refresh this because I think the projections have been updated, or the ownership, I mean. All right. Let's do, I usually do 20 lineups. Tournament mode. Do 3 uniques. We'll see if that works. I leave this at random 0 until I've got all my numbers in here, and I want to see how they come out first usually. And then, all right, so what I do is start by deselecting anybody I don't want. Since I'm projecting these guys at 0, I'm going to just go ahead and remove them. You know, look, if you run a scenario and you've got Gunner, you know, getting you 2 or 3 points or whatever, you want to leave them in there, go ahead. Griffin, Montgomery, also a guy I think that will probably catch a couple of things. Actually, oh yeah, I do have a prediction for him, don't I? Yeah, very low, 1.9. We'll leave him in there. Jets, Brandon Bolden, Ficken, and Watson, DT. Okay, that's good. Let's go down our list. Wait, that's just, I like to check the exclusions to make sure there's not somebody in here that should be. Bellamy. A couple of these guys could actually catch passes like Bellamy and Vincent and so forth, but I'm not projecting that in this particular scenario. So got that in. So this is what I do. I just take my projections straight up off my list and put them in. We actually are projecting Brady at quite a bit lower, just due to the fact that we're not giving him as many touchdowns. So this is going to go against what's in here. So this is going to come out differently than if you just do your likes and dislikes here based off of these projections. This is just a different way of approaching it. Using the Army's projections is good because like that's going to be based off of just a lot of the statistics that we have on like how good they normally are, how, you know, what their matchups are and what to expect here. What I'm doing is very specific to a specific type of game plan going as according to exactly how I think it's going to go. What I'll typically do is I'll run a few of these, right? And so I won't like put all my eggs in one basket necessarily, but if I think that that this more run heavy approach is going to be one scenario that I want to play heavily, you know, I'll put the numbers in just like this and see kind of how that comes out. Because naturally, if I'm giving Le'Veon Bell, James White, Sony Michel are my top 3 projected players, they're gonna, you know, it's gonna all elevate the ownership of how I get those lineups set up. So it makes a difference. But just know that that like if your game plan doesn't go exactly how you thought it was going to go, it's probably going to not work out so well for you. You know, if Brady throws for 4 touchdowns, then I probably won't have him in enough lineups here in this particular scenario to benefit. But we'll see how it goes. Like Julian Edelman, let's see, I got him at 15.6. So I'm just going to go run through these real quick here. It doesn't take very long. Sam Darnold, 8.2. Jesus, it's terrible. Sony Michel, 16.4. James White, 17.8. So these are where the big changes happen, right? You got this Patriots D. So Patriots D 11. This is how I actually won my King of the Beach, or tied for, I guess, my King of the Beach qualifier, is going through here. And what I ended up doing in that particular scenario was I had Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones projected about the same, because I thought that they were going to split the workload. And that's basically exactly what happened. Actually, Jamal Williams ended up being a little bit more, but the fact that he was half the price was made him the play. And I had like 100% ownership of Jamal Williams. So let's see, Robbie Anderson, 7.2. Philip Dorsett. Where did I put Dorsett? There you are, 7.8. Jacoby Myers, 7.8. Demaryius Thomas, 8.4. These guys are going to be really close, so this is going to be highly dependent on how things go. And so this is where how much you put up here in this variability thing, where is it, randomization, is going to come into play. That randomization applied to these middle guys right here is going to give you some variety in which one it picks as the better play. Nugent, where did we have him at? Like 12, right? No, 12. Sam Ficken, I think we had him at 9. Sam, where are you? Ficken. No, 7. Bolden, where are you? 7.1. It'd be nice, I think, at some point in the future, we're going to get an import capability on Domination Station to import your own projections and export them. That would be great. So I can save all my stuff that I make changes for. Ty Montgomery, 1.9. It's almost not even worth putting in there. Ryan Griffin, 5.4. Okay, so we got our guys. Now, one very important thing is we got to go in and do the same thing on the captains tab, because these won't automatically give you the 1.5 version of those projections. So I've got to come in here and say, okay, Tom Brady's 22.2, because otherwise it's going to give me the wrong captains. 23.4, Le'Veon Bell, 29.95. Sam Darnold, 12.3. Now, you guys don't have to use this particular Gameflow scenario. I'm just showing you kind of how the process works. And if you believe in a particular scenario that you think is going to be the outcome, then you would do something similar to this, you know, just to come up with your own. Wait, did I mess this up, Sam Darnold? Looks low. No, 12.3. Multiplier on 9 is pretty low anyways. Patriots, gonna be 16.5. Crowder, 14.79. Anderson, 10.8. Dorsett is 11.7. Myers is 11.7. Demarius Thomas, 8.4. Watson, 6.9. Mike Nugent is 18. Yeah, we're definitely going to get Nugent up in the top. You see that 3.16 thicken. So we're going to probably have to make some percentage. I don't typically like to have a lot of kickers in my captain spot, but 10.6. Sorry, 10.69. Jets, 10.5. And Montgomery, 2.92. Griffin, 8.1. Okay, cool, done. It's pretty high actually for him. Like he's going to end up being in a lot of lineups too. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it, see what we get. See if we got any notes here. Pat's D is way too priced. Oh yeah, tell me about it. Trying to put together a cash lineup for tonight, and I wanted the Pat's D in there, but like, shoot, at 7,200, you gotta like really like look at him comparatively to guys like Sony Michel and James White and Dorsett and all these other guys. Like, are they gonna outscore all of these, big players? I don't know. So let's see how this runs. Okay. So first, I like to usually look at my captain distribution to see if it's how I think it should go. This is interesting based off of these projections. And we kind of see, since Bell is up here at the top, which is kind of surprising, but since he's kind of like the only guy there, he is getting put into our captain spot the most, 35%. Bell, James White, 25, Sony Michel, 15, Tom Brady, 10%, so 2 there. And we only got 1 kicker, which is surprising. I thought it might be a little bit higher, but that's good. I'm fine with 1 out of 20 being my kicker. That's actually how I won or tied for that King of the Beach tournament. So I don't mind taking a shot in this particular scenario if we think that there's a kicker that's going to do well. But I typically wouldn't take more than 1 or 2 lineups with in that scenario. It's such a low frequency that they are the top scoring player on the board, and they have to be the top scoring player in order for that to make sense, unless like 5 other players all score basically the same general amount, and you had to play the kicker in order to afford all 5 of those other people, which is also a scenario that can happen, but is a lower frequency kind of scenario as well. Edelman and Crowder. I like all these guys, actually, and I like the distribution. I kind of think that I might want maybe a little bit more Edelman and a little bit less Bell in this particular scenario. So, but let's just leave it for now. Looks like I got Bell in 100% of my lineups right now. That is too much Bell for me. So what I'll typically do here is like go back and just see if I feel like my numbers for Bell are what I think is reasonable to expect. So let's see where he's getting all of his work. All right, we got Le'Veon Bell, 17 attempts, 3.5 rushing yards, so 60 total yards on the ground, and we're giving him the touchdown. That's really where it's coming from. And 7 for 5. Maybe this is too generous for Bell. Based off of the New England defense, we might want to drop this. Maybe we only give him 4 catches. Makes a difference. About a little bit less, 18.4 instead. Let's do that. I like that, and it puts our numbers perfectly now, completion-wise, 20. So I'm just going to update that. Let's go back to our Chrome. I just don't like that much Bell. Especially considering I was going to fade Bell in, so let's see here, players, and it was 18.2, I think. $27.3 is our new multiplied number for captain. I think it's not going to change much, but let's just take a look. Got a little bit less. Oh yeah, definitely less, 25%. Now we got James White as the highest. That's why I like that better. 85% Bell, like that better as well. I'd even maybe limit this a little bit. But let's, we're going to stick with the kind of game flow. I'm not going to make a whole lot of changes here. I want to just show you kind of how this lays out. And so you just kind of look to see if there's anything that's really weird. We don't have very much Myers or Dissett. We didn't project them very high, both 7.8. Pretty even distribution down here at the bottom of these kind of low end guys. I like Ryan Griffin a little bit more than he's coming up because I think he affords you a lot more unique kind of interesting lineups. So I might bump his projection a touch to get a little bit more of him. But really, this isn't too bad. I might have a little bit more Bolden than I want. But you can kind of get the idea of what, and then what you do is just play. Let's say we don't want 25% Bolden. I only want 15, right? And maybe I want a little bit more of Mr. Griffin. I'm not going to bump him much. Let's just bump him up to 5.8. It's not much. Jets D is not, and it's maybe too much. 15. I don't want more than 3 lineups with the Jets D in there. Patriots D. I like this. I like this. All my good guys at the top. I like all these guys here. Captain spot. Edelman came up. I got 2 with Edelman now. Brady 2. Nugent 1. I like that. Good distribution for a run heavy game. I'm going to rerun this with our changes. Okay. All right. Let's see. Yep, we dropped Bolden down. He's now he's 10. Actually, ended up limiting him a little bit more. 20% Griffin now. That's better. All right, let's take a look at some of these lineups. All right, Bell, Thomas, Nugent, Edelman, Sony. Wait, man, this is like the run onslaught here. All the running backs except for Bolden, basically. We got Nugent, Patriots defense. I like that combo. I like Edelman, Sony, James White. This is actually good. And no Brady in here. A little weird, but I don't hate it. You might even be able to afford, not even sure, 1,500 extra. You might even be able to afford swapping Bell for Brady if you wanted to get him in there. White. Look. Let's see where Brady's at here. He's in 11 of our lineups, but he's not showing up in these top projected, and that's just based off of the fact that we've got it where running backs are the top projected. So let's go down and find one with Brady, and I want to see what. So James White, Brady, Sony, Bell, both defenses. Okay, interesting. Bell. Still got a little bit too much Bell. How much Bell do we have? Oh, this one ran at 25. So I'm just going to go ahead and limit it. I don't want that much Bell. I'm going to say I want 15% Bell. Let's see what happens. Probably bite me in the, like if I were actually playing this, like usually the adjustments that I make like this, like I'll do all of this work for projections and then I don't go with the, you know, like, oh, I don't want those, I don't want that outcome because I don't like Bell for whatever reason this particular matchup, and I think that New England's going to limit him more than what I'm actually saying I thought the projection's going to be. And then it bites me in the ass because I'm like, oh, well, if I just left Bell in at 25%, I would have cashed out on 2 more lineups. But now I've dropped it. So, okay, so he's in 3. I got White Sony above him now. I like that better. Okay, so now let's look at where I'm going to see one with Brady. Sony. Okay, so basically, so this is a weird scenario, right? You got Tom Brady, and you basically, the only pass catcher he's really got here is James White, which is fine. We don't have Edelman or anything like that. It's really hard to avoid all of these guys, right? So, like, if you wanted Edelman in here, you'd have to replace Bell. You have to put Edelman in here for Bell. I don't even know if you could afford it. There's only, you know, actually have 100, so you'd have to come off of Patriots D as well and come down to somebody else. So that's why, like, scenario wise, like, these things are interesting to kind of look how the projections come out. James White, Tom Brady, Bell, Sony. We got a lot of these combinations of James White, Sony, and Bell just because those are going to be our top projected guys. You know, that may or may not work for you based off of the projection. So, you know, like, if you were going to do this, I might run, like, let's say if we're doing a 20 max kind of thing, and this is our scenario, I might run 10 in this particular scenario, and maybe come up with another 10 with a different scenario. Maybe it's Brady passing for 3 touchdowns and them rushing for 1 or something like that, and do the numbers differently like that, and just see. And then I'll have just basically 2 different game flow scenarios that I think are highly likely to come out of the game. And if either one of those work, I'm basically leveraging that amount or that particular scenario by going heavily one way or the other, right? When you sort of take average projections based off of like a broad wide of outcomes, the time where those work is when the game is sort of like more kind of, you know, medium focused, and there isn't like a heavy outcome in one direction or another towards what you think is going to happen. So I like to play it more like this because I tend to think some of these games do go a little bit more heavy in one direction or another, and are a little bit less just kind of like middle of the road, right, average. So anyways, let's, you know, you can look at these and say, I like them or not, and you can make manual adjustments if you want to some of these lineups. When you're doing 20, I don't have any problem. I usually just download these, import them into DraftKings, and then I'll go through each one and just kind of look to see if there's like adjustments I want to make to them. But for the most part, I'll just run them how they come out of here. The only difference is once I'm happy with kind of like the general kind of thing, I'll come up here and I'll put about 5 to 6%. Let's do run it at 6. That way I get a little bit more variety of some of these middle players. So we'll see James White, 95, Bell. Still have maybe too much Bell for my liking. Just gonna put him at, let's put him at 60. Sony, Brady, and a good mix down below. Yep, looks good. We'll rerun it. We'll limit the. It's a little bit better. The reason why I put 60 here, but the reason why that's 70 is because I got 10% in captain. So it's actually the total 60 plus the 10 captain, total 70. Yeah, so that's basically it. Let me see. No Ben Watson on FanDuel. There's no Watson on FanDuel. Okay, guys, if you don't see it, I don't know, we can switch over to FanDuel here, but if you don't see it, go look under my exclusions. There's a whole bunch of guys here that have 0 projections. Like if there is 0, then they show up over here on the exclusions list, and you just need to give them a projection to bring them back into your players list. Pat's D is wage, yeah. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it. This is basically just kind of like, I'll show you my process. You guys can kind of take a similar approach if you like it. But you know, that's how I do it. And then I'll take these lineups, I'll go and import them into DraftKings and just let them roll. If there's no more questions, if you guys good, then I'm going to wrap it up. All right. Thanks for your time. Go get them.